Sliding in Battlefield 1 is a very useful tactic, and one that every player should consider using when trying to push a corner camping enemy. With the previous build of the game, sliding was really good, and in my opinion, all DICE needed to do was increase the cooldown time between each slide in order to prevent players from spamming it, but instead they made it far worse. You can no longer slide sideways like you used to be able to do, and many would say that this is an improvement. You're getting less players sliding from left to right, sort of reducing that AD-AD spam that we've seen in the game since launch. It makes players far more static, you'll be easier to hit, and also you will find it more difficult to slide away into cover. That being said, enemy players are far easier to hit and track as well, and it makes the pace of the game a little different. Now that change has given a new challenge to players, and in this video I'm going to show you some effective ways of using the slide to gain an advantage on an enemy. I was assisted in this video by Dan Minigun. He is a very good Battlefield 1 player and has a channel that is worth checking out. Links for his channel will be in the description down below. Essentially, the changes that DICE have made have prevented the ability to slide unless you press W. Essentially, without pressing W, you will not be able to slide anymore, and as I mentioned before, that removes the opportunity to slide from right to left. Sensitivity decreases during the slide, which is another change I really don't like. However, for those with a high sensitivity, you might not have experienced such a difference. For those on console, I'm really not too sure how this has affected you. I know on PC, sliding is a major part of the game, and although this change has been around for a little while, I haven't really seen too many people make videos on how to implement the new slide into your gameplay, although many players have complained about it being changed. Let me know in the comments below if it has affected you a lot on console. I know sliding is something that you definitely use on console as well. I'm just interested to see how players have either benefited or not benefited and had to adapt to the new system. Players with a high sense, as I mentioned, won't be affected as much, so you might not have noticed too much of a difference. And although you can up your sensitivity if you're a low sense player, that's not really something that you want to be doing, as it takes a long time to learn a new sensitivity. As you can see from the background, I've got several different videos showing how to approach the new slide. This 90-degree turn is something that I use to both dodge enemy fire and to approach an enemy that's in a corner of a room. As you can see here on Argonne Forest, I've set up a little simulation. In order to do this, it's very simple. You just join an empty server, drop into the scout class, and then place some decoys inside a room. Use these as enemy targets, bit of target practice. People have asked me in the past how you do this. The game really does need a firing range, however this is probably the best way to get around it. Now what I'm going to try and do here is run into this room and then take out one of the targets. As is often the case in Battlefield, players camp in the corner and you want to be sliding in and take them out. And as you can see, I've managed to do that straight away. What I'm doing is sprinting forward, pressing W, sliding and turning to the left 90 degrees. There are two ways to do this. Firstly, you either slide in and as you're sliding, turn to the left, and as I said, your sensitivity will be lower, so you'll have to move your mouse a lot, and it makes it very difficult to be accurate unless you practice loads. Secondly, and this is a little trickier, you want to turn to the left before sliding into the room, so you're almost facing your enemy and anticipating they're going to be there, and then you slide towards them. This is very different and it's something you could do before this update, but I feel as if you also gain a benefit from this if you find it very difficult to turn whilst sliding. So those are the two ways that I feel you can approach a corner when trying to take down an enemy. You can also use sliding in this game to great effect when taking on an enemy head on. It's almost like crouch bouncing. When you're approaching somebody, you want to be holding down Control or C or whatever button it is for crouch, just to make yourself a harder target to hit. While approaching the enemy, you can slide forward at them. Again, you have that momentum and you're going to be very difficult to take down. Now here's an example from Dan Minigun. He's playing on Amiens with the Huot and he hears somebody coming up the stairs, and in order to push this player who's come up the stairs, he's going to incorporate a slide into his gameplay, which clearly makes him far harder to hit as we watch it again in slow motion. He almost ducks out of the way of the enemy player. They then have to adjust their aim and shoot you as you're sliding towards them, and you're almost under them, which makes you virtually impossible to hit. Also, the game, remember, has to keep up with all these crazy movements that you're doing, and it often doesn't do that well, giving you a very solid advantage. Definitely incorporate this into your play. If you can, it can be done on both console and PC. I see players doing it all the time, and it's very, very strong, even since the patch. Sliding can also be used to get into cover, and this is where the slide is very effective, even since that update. You can almost hold W and then A, or W and D, and slide at an angle to avoid getting shot. It's very, very useful, and you can see some examples of this in the background. You could also do something similar to this before the update. Now for a high-level thing that you can incorporate into your game. This is using the slide and prone in order to gain an advantage, and you can see an example of this in the background. It was provided by Dan Minigun. I have tried my best to implement this into my own game, but it's not really something I think about when I'm getting shot at, because I tend to panic and just slide into cover any way I can. Incorporating the slide into your prone means that you can almost dolphin dive into cover and gain that extra bit of distance on your prone. Very, very useful. Obviously, proning gets you out of the way of windows, and you can get behind a smaller bit of cover, preserving your character on the game and staying alive for longer. Now, the final thing I'd like to say about the sliding mechanic is that it can be used very effectively if you are trying to revive somebody. Sliding over towards a downed player and then picking them up is always a good option, and has been since the game first came out. Even since these updates, the basic mechanics of the slide, just clicking W, sliding towards something, and then, performing a task such as reviving or dropping a med bag, has always been effective. It still is, and is definitely something you should implement. Walking up to somebody, looking at them and reviving them, although seems slightly more realistic than sliding across pretty much any sort of ground and then picking someone up. Trust me, you want to be doing it. Sliding is very effective, it makes you far harder to hit. And looking at somebody that's just been downed, you can probably assume that they're not in cover and they've been taken out by someone who's now camping their body. If you can slide in, pick them up and get out of there, you're going to be less likely to get taken out yourself. It's an effective tactic. Definitely implement it into your game. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below. If you have any additional comments regarding the sliding mechanic, I would love to hear them. Leave them down in the comments and I'll make sure to read through them. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.